And now I will hand it over to today's speaker, Anne.
Hello, everyone. This is Speech Generating Device Assessment Demonstration, a practical guide for SLPs. I'm Anne Bedard. I'm an SLP and an assistive technology specialist at EastCon, and I provide my email there because I highly encourage you to reach out to me one-on-one with any questions that you don't want to share publicly or that we just didn't have time to get to. I want to remind you that the one I did last year was about writing goals for AAC users, and you can watch it very easily on YouTube through this link, but you won't get any ASHA CEUs. If you use the bottom link, you'll still get your ASHA CEU just for watching the recording. And then before that, I did a webinar on how to change some settings in iPads specifically in order to increase positive outcomes. And my first session was Reverse the Curse, about students that might be rejecting their talkers or they are prompt dependent to use them and what we can do for those individuals. My speaker disclosure, I'm a salaried employee, but also my work is partially funded by the Connecticut Tech Act project, which is a grant. So at this point, I need to collect some data for my grant. If Blair could go ahead and launch the poll, please tell me which category you would put yourself in.
Okay, I just launched it. Are you seeing that?
Yes, thank you so much. All right, we hit 80% participation, so I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. Looks like we have 55% reps of education. Welcome, everybody. Our learning objectives today are to talk about strategies to help individuals participate in the trials that you're trying to do with a talker, identify some behaviors that are going to indicate the potential for really great success with that talker, and then identify some strategies that we need to address at the implementation training after your eval is done. My disclaimer, like last time, is that you shouldn't feel bad if you haven't done it this way before. We're all learning as we go, and that you shouldn't really change your practice without talking to your teams and administrators, especially for those reps of education, and that we can't always count on things staying the same or everyone agreeing on the things that I'm advising you in today, or knowing that we're doing it quote unquote right, because I know SLPs especially just want to know exactly what to do, and AAC is not always as clear-cut as that. So the background for this individual that you're going to see in the videos is that, well, first of all, his parents did give me written consent to share this video with you all. This was during an eval that I did back in March when he was just about to turn 18. He has diagnoses of Down syndrome, autism spectrum disorder, and something called specific phobia, which I had actually never heard of, but it's an extreme fear of objects or situations that actually pose little or no danger, but make the person highly anxious. And so you could probably imagine his fear of trees causes a lot of issues that he needs to be able to communicate about. Like his parents said, like they can't go through a drive-through restaurant if there's a tree looking like it was dangerous to Austin. He would have extreme meltdowns in the car. And at school, if they were walking somewhere outside, he would refuse to walk somewhere based on how the trees were looking. So definitely needs AAC in order to communicate that. I was an outside evaluator. I had never met Austin before. I'd never worked in his district before. I did a file review, and that included a referral packet that my agency uses to collect some information. And what they reported was that he has about 50 expressions, but only a quarter of those are clear to people who don't know him really well. And then I did a 2-hour observation at his school. And during that observation, I always want to see, if I possibly can, see the student working on a touch screen. So he was using YouTube independently to even like rewind to his favorite part of his favorite video, which I know a lot of your friends probably do that too. And what that answered for me is that given something that he's familiar with and highly motivated to use, his vision was adequate to use it, his fine motor skills were adequate to use it. And so one thing I want to point out to you is that you don't need to formally assess vision and fine motor skills if you're already seeing them demonstrated, even if it's on a non-AAC device. And then lastly, I did a 45-minute team meeting after the observation, including mom, because I wanted to hear about what he's doing outside of school. And she shared that he actually communicates even less in the community, which was a big concern because he's of that age where he's going to start transitioning into vocational settings. And that even with his family, he'll turn up the radio to avoid answering questions when they try to just have conversation and chit chat with him. He'll say things like too much, stop, shut up, and bye. So they were just really concerned that he was really shutting down when it came to communication. So we're going to go ahead and jump into the first video.
Hey.
Hi. Hi, Mom and Dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey.
Maybe you see
Watch.
something on this page
Watch.
that you like. Austin, do you like to watch
YouTube.
YouTube?
YouTube.
What else do you like to watch?
Mm-hmm. Watch.
Watch.
Covered.
What?
Cover.
Cuppa?
Cover.
Chromebook.
Turn it on.
That makes sense. You turn on your Chromebook. Nice job.
Yeah.
You need the awesome button yellow.
Austin. Austin.
Yay.
Yay.
Yeah. I'm going to go to watch.
Watch.
What does Austin watch?
Watch it. Austin watch.
He watches his Chromebook. You're getting really close to it. No glasses. We didn't talk about that. Okay. Can you see this okay?
Yeah.
Yeah? Can you see this one?
Yeah.
Yeah? Let's talk about what you like to
Eat.
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 What do you like to eat?
Lunch.
Ooh, yeah,
Good
buddy.
job, buddy.
Hey, look what I have.
Soup.
No, I'm getting really close to it too because I don't see it. I'm gonna spell it.
Donuts. Donut.
You see? Mom brought donuts.
Yeah.
Wow. Ooh. No chocolate?
Oh.
No chocolate?
Nobody likes glazed.
It's
What?
donut.
Great donut?
Glazed.
Oh, glazed donut. Nice job telling me.
Good job. Good. Good job.
Good job telling me glazed donut.
Good.
What do you want to do with the glazed donut?
when you pull out your coolest toy or donut to elicit a request and get no response. So that was very unexpected, and I kind of had to pivot a little bit.
I like how you're looking at the talker.
What's that one?
That's called a talker. Yeah, because it's talking, right?
Eat lunch.
It's talking.
Eval.
Chicken nuggets.
Mmm.
Yeah.
What else do you like?
Cheeseburger.
And that's accurate, I'm sure. Okay, cool. So you are able to see the buttons.
right.
That's great.
French
Austin.
fries.
Yes. That's great.
Eat lunch, chicken nuggets, cheeseburger, French fries.
Hey, I love how you touched the top
Yay.
bar. Because you saw me do it. I never even
Yes.
told you that. That's the best indicator of success, is imitating a model. So that people aren't like forcing him, but they're just showing him things, and then he remembers and copies.
Oh, yeah.
That is awesome. Austin, you are doing awesome.
Yeah.
Sit, sit, sit. What are you saying? I heard sit, sit, sit.
Yes.
Breakfast?
Yeah.
Did you say breakfast?
Yeah.
Nice job.
Water.
Water.
Yeah. And breakfast.
Nuggets.
Now.
No water? I
No
found
water?
I found breakfast.
Breakfast.
That's
I heard you say that. And it's in there.
Breakfast.
Breakfast. Nice job. That's a hard word to say. What did you eat for breakfast today?
Yes.
Sausage.
Really? I'll have to ask Mom if that's true. Sounds
Sausage.
good. Hey! Nice job. I'm going to turn the brightness up because I wonder if that might help with the noticing. I'm going to turn the brightness up on this 1 second. I tend to keep it dark. Is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah? Can you see it better now? Breakfast sausage.
Breakfast sausage.
Mmm, that sounds delicious.
Yeah.
And look, if I use this clear button,
2.
it erases.
Sausage.
Found it again.
Yes.
Jelly.
Johnny.
Mmm, I like jelly.
Breakfast.
Breakfast.
Like. Jelly.
I like
With.
jelly.
I like breakfast.
I like jelly on.
On.
What do you think I put my jelly on?
Like.
Like.
Read.
Eat.
Journal.
Oh, now you're on the reading page. That's cool. You know what I like
Don't know.
jelly on?
Journal.
Austin,
Yeah.
do you know what I like jelly on?
Yeah.
Pancakes.
Breakfast.
I put jelly on pancakes.
Jelly
Is that
pancakes.
weird?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's weird, right? I don't like.
I don't
Ah, don't.
like.
I don't like.
Hey.
I don't like syrup.
Service.
I don't like.
Syrup. And I can't
Don't
find.
like.
And I don't like syrup.
Don't like.
But I can't find syrup, so you know what I'm gonna do?
Syrup.
I can spell it. Do you know there's a keyboard?
Syrup are used.
That's a funny word.
Yeah.
Okay, so many things happening in this video, but I want to point out what I mentioned as a #1 indicator of success is the spontaneous imitation of a model. So some of you might notice these phrases about things being adequate come from insurance funding letter of justification. So just by them spontaneously imitating one of your models, you can check all these boxes in your paperwork for insurance that attention is adequate, memory is adequate, vision is adequate, cognition is adequate, fine motor is adequate. and that no prompting or assistance was needed. And that's what you really need to highlight throughout your paperwork for insurance funding. And all of that can be decided based on just a spontaneous imitation of a model. And then I noted the ones with YouTube because I did already have a feeling his vision was adequate based on him using YouTube. And I already had a feeling his fine motor was adequate based on his use of YouTube.
And a few people were asking, oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
A few people were asking, is this his first time using a speech generating device, or
Yes.
does he have, okay, it is, great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Question for you.
Eat. Pizza.
Pizza.
What do you like on your pizza?
Pizza.
There's,
Peppers.
do you like peppers?
Uh,
Do you like
Sausage.
sausage on your pizza?
Pork.
mm,
What do you put on your pizza?
mm,
Austin, what do you like on your pizza?
yeah.
There's different choices.
It's
What do you like?
Meat.
me.
Cool.
Eat pizza with meat.
Me. Eat pizza with meat.
Yeah, I think you're reading it. You're looking very closely at
Yeah.
the words when you say them. That is great.
And more.
Ooh, eat pizza with meat and more.
Yeah.
Yummy. I'm getting hungry.
Extra.
It's
Veggies.
Ooh, that's what I would like.
And
and
more.
more.
Wow. That sounds amazing, Austin.
I think so.
Okay, I want to point out a second indicator of success, which is sequencing buttons. That could be like how the eat button leads you to the foods, or how the pizza with leads you to the toppings, but that still counts as sequencing buttons because it's like opening a folder. So it demonstrates their ability to navigate folders, which again, this is like insurance, check that off the box. It allows him to increase his MLU because he's sequencing words to make sentences. It allows him to increase his vocabulary because category folders have so much vocabulary inside of them once you're able to open those folders. It allows him to increase his ability to answer questions. So in order to answer a lot of questions, you need a lot of fringe vocabulary, a lot of nouns, and they have to be organized in folders once again. And then lastly, to get his specific wants and needs met, which is an item on a letter of justification for insurance as well. And the keyword there is specific. You can't be specific about what you want or need if you don't have hundreds of words, and they have to be organized into folders that you have to be able to navigate.
Orange.
Loud, turn it down. Snow bad night, really warm, cool, hot, cold weather.
Uh-oh. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So that's why we use clear before we start a new sentence. Okay?
Weather.
Just navigated to the homepage again.
Unrested.
So we saw some people would look at that as a negative, that he was kind of thinking it was funny to play all the stuff that had piled up in the top bar. But what I was really noticing was, how did he respond when I redirected him? So I did it in a very kind, gentle way, saying, oopsie, that's why we need to use the clear button, you know, kind of give him the benefit of the doubt, no scolding. And he responded really well to that, and he didn't continue to do that. And so that's an indicator of success, that in the future, when I'm not there and para or mom is the one having to redirect him, that he's going to respond well to it. And then the other thing that happened in that video was he used the home button to navigate back to the home page, which is something that I didn't specifically instruct him on. I was just demonstrating it, modeling, and he learned it. So again, that shows his cognition, his memory for learning that new skill, that is opening another folder or navigating back to the home page. So it's just showing you so many different positive skills that you can check all those boxes on the insurance paperwork.
Dustin Austin.
Because that's impressive if he can't. He just kind
He
of.
knows.
Interesting.
It is.
Good internal clock. I do not have a good internal clock. If you asked me how long we've been doing this, I would have no idea.
Dustin Austin.
Uh-oh. We're only going to push that one time, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. So might need some reminders about that. It's tempting to play with a talker.
Who do you want to come over?
Watch.
Ooh, come over and watch a show?
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
TV.
Come over and watch TV?
Come over, watch TV.
That's a great sentence.
Netflix.
Netflix.
Yes!
Come over, watch TV, Netflix.
Nice job.
Austin, you are a rock star.
So again, after using it in a non-communicative way, he was pushing both of the Austin buttons at the same time for like surround sound. I wasn't worried about that. I was more interested in, did he listen to me when I asked him to stop? And he did. So that is a positive thing that we should focus on and make sure that we share at the training afterwards. And then the other thing he did, because I didn't like shut it down and say like, oh, you're not using it the right way, I let him keep going. And that's when he built his longest sentence of the evaluation, which is come over, watch TV, Netflix. And he was so proud of himself that he did that. So I feel like it's important to make sure that you like keep the conversation going, because you might be able to get to something even better. Whereas if I had just like said like, oh, we need to take a break because you're not using it right, I never would have seen him build that sentence.
I thought it was gonna be one of those ear piercing ones. Is it normally in your room very loud?
In the hallway.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I think the bell's all done.
Yummy.
Is it yummy?
Yummy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was the donut?
Good.
More.
Are you saying more donut?
Yeah.
Good job using the talker to tell me. Good times. Hey, Austin, the bell already rang. It's all done.
Give.
We're gonna clear first, and then you could say,
Give.
give what? Give.
Me. More.
More.
Give me more.
Dinner more.
Nice job.
Did you say thank you?
Thank you.
And then I'll say,
You're welcome.
you're welcome.
You're welcome. You know, Austin.
Yeah. That's playing. We're not gonna play with the Austin button
It's
anymore.
too much.
There it is.
What did he say?
It's too much.
Yeah.
It's just,
Do you need a break?
Yeah.
Hey, we can take a break.
he has certain sayings he likes.
Need to take the break. I need to take the break.
That's I need to take a break.
you could see I fell into the trap of withholding the donuts a little bit. Like when he said give, I knew he meant give me a donut, but I just waited and said, give me what? So that's withholding. And as soon as I did it, I realized what I was doing. So then I modeled give me more, and I gave it to him without forcing him to do anything extra on the talker. But it is very tempting to withhold in order to get talker use. And so I just want to admit that I still do it by accident too. But you should really just model and give them the thing that they're showing you that they want, even just by looking at it or saying a single word. And then at the end there, when he did the Austin buttons again, I was a little more harsh with him. I said, we're not going to play. And notice then he used one of his phrases that he uses to tell people to go away, which is too much. And I didn't understand what it was, but his special ed teacher and his pair are sitting across the table for me, and they interpreted for me. And when he says too much, that means you're doing too much to bother him, and you need to stop bothering him. So I modeled, I need a break. So getting back to some kind of tips from Linda Burkhart about what to do when you're modeling during trials is that the goal should not be for them to say what we want them to say. Because right from the beginning, I wanted him to say, I want a donut. And he just would rather talk about something else. So it really needs to follow their agenda. It needs to be child-centered, not adult-directed. Number 2, she points out that a child's first words or whatever is meaningful to that child. So like first words are usually something fun, something exciting, something they're interested in. It's not just what the adults are teaching. And it's the same with the talker. So you need to model what they're thinking about. The example, too much means I need a break. Number 4, model to connect, not to direct. So I would not recommend that you use the talker to give them directions, like telling them that they need to do something, but instead model whatever they're wanting to do, kind of let them be the boss when you're using the talker with them. And number 5, whatever the child says is correct, make something of it, go with it, turn it into a conversation. Don't ever say, oh, that doesn't make any sense. Even when he typed out a bunch of random letters on the keyboard, I just said, oh, that's a funny word. And then we just need to be genuine, meaningful, and emotional. So giving lots of positive, emotional reactions to them when you're using the talker. So it's like a fun conversation. And then these are just some more strategies that I wanted to add on to those. I recommend you always ask questions that really have no wrong answer. I tripped up and asked him what he had for breakfast. So when he said sausage, I said, oh, I'll have to check with mom. You really shouldn't do that. You should really just say open-ended things like, what? What do you think of that? Or do you want to tell me something? Because then no matter what they hit on the talker, you can kind of like turn it into a conversation. Use a lot of humor, be silly, joke around. Any good AAC app is going to have an entire jokes folder, lots of fun language in like a social folder. So, and just you yourself being goofy, like I'm wearing my rubber ducky earrings and I'm no chocolate, donuts, just being goofy so they want to talk to you. Giving lots of verbal praise, high fives. You saw him smiling a lot. This is a student who often refuses and is isolated because of that. So his teacher even commented at one point, he's so proud of himself, because she was like surprised that he was acting that way. Number 4, follow their lead, match their energy, and imitate them. Kind of try to get into their head. What are they thinking about? If they're using any kind of verbal approximations, say whatever they just said on the talker. Number 5, talk about their high interest topics. Obviously food, I had gotten some background that food was a high interest for Austin. have those highly preferred items available if possible, like a concrete thing that they can see that you have it, but just try not to withhold it. Give lots of positive emotional reactions to any use of the talker, even if it's something really random. High five, I love how you use the talker. That's great. You're a rock star, all that stuff. And then number 8, I just added, because in the last year, I've noticed a lot of kids are really interested in the keyboard page. Austin really wasn't that interested, but a lot of students on the spectrum, especially, I've seen them like not have any spontaneous use of the talker until I go to the keyboard page because they're really into numbers or they're really into letters. And what they think of the letters as is just a pattern. Like maybe they do an alphabet puzzle all the time. So they think of it as A to Z. And when I start to use the letters to spell their name, they're interested, and then they hear it speak their name, which is very familiar, and it usually like captures their attention really well. So I just want to recommend modeling that as well. And now we can get into behavior a little bit. So our last objective, it's all fun and games until someone figures out the function of your behavior. So if you're seeing a behavior such as Austin pushing the 2 Austin buttons at the same time, kind of getting that surround sound, and you're suspecting that it might be for auditory self-stimulation, just telling the student to stop is not going to work, but we can give them an alternative way to do it. So they can't do it on their talker, but they can do it on this button. And if you search voice recording buttons on Amazon nowadays, you can find the equivalent of what like a $200 Big Mac does. You can get a set of 4 for less than $20. So I would recommend, like for Austin, I would recommend that somebody be like ready to record the button as somebody else is pushing Austin, Austin. And now that is recorded on the button. And whenever he's doing it on his talker, you're actually going to put the button right on top of the talker and model it so that he's seeing, oh, I can get the same auditory stimulation from this button. I don't need to do it on my talker. So it kind of differentiates the purpose of the 2 different devices. And then this didn't happen with Austin. I did not find him to be prompt dependent, but if your students are kind of waiting for you to tell them to touch the talker, that's called being prompt dependent. Sometimes they're even just like looking for your facial expression. So like a lot of kids will like look up at the adult because they're looking for some kind of cue from the adult's face that they should do something. That is really tricky because you kind of have to wean them off of that prompt. And you won't see any spontaneous use of the talker because if you think about it, the pattern that the student has learned is I don't touch the talker unless someone tells me to. So if no one's telling me to, I won't do it spontaneously, which is a real problem, especially for insurance funding for a talker. So you kind of have to be very strategic, meeting with everybody so everybody knows what not to do. So I would recommend you do that at a training, have everybody come together, talk about what prompts are, even just a look, and then kind of go through a systematic least to most prompting hierarchy where you give them the prompt, but you're very aware of what you're doing so that you can give them like a less helpful prompt and kind of wean them off of it systematically. And then similar situation with a student who's prompt avoidant, so somebody who tries to escape demands. There needs to be a training where everybody knows what not to do, because every time they're giving a prompt, the student is getting escalated and they're rejecting the talker. So now you can't even model because the student is upset that you're modeling because they feel like a demand is being put on them. So everybody needs to learn what the prompts are, even if it's just a look. And then everybody just needs to stop cold turkey. This one is not about weaning the student off. This one is about just everyone around the student, cold turkey, stop giving prompts. And then what I also have found to work is to put some highly motivating vocabulary, very familiar, like cocoa melon and like the things that they'll recognize in the talker, and model those things so that the student can see them, maybe at a time when the student is busy with their hands, like they're doing some kind of like hands-on activity, and they feel like you're not forcing them to use the talker because they're busy doing something and you're side by side showing them this new cool vocabulary to hopefully get some buy-in back with the talker. So at this point, I wanted to leave ample time for questions because I'm sure you have lots of questions. And these are the questions that are going to be on your test for your CEUs. So I also wanted to give you a chance to ask me if you felt like any of these were unclear. So I'm going to pull up the Q&A if I can. Okay. The first question is from Dawn. Any suggestions for kiddos who are Gestalt language processors who are trialing devices? I'm not an expert on GLP, but I have been to other experts' webinars and resources, and a lot of them are saying you should have a mix of full gestalts programmed into buttons as well as single words, but you can't just do single words for somebody whose their starting point is chunks of language. And there are like the different phases. So I guess the first thing you should do is get a baseline of what phase your student is in. If they're in the earliest phase, then that's when language to them is like a really long chunk. And you can't expect them to understand single words because they're not there yet. But the single words is the last phase. So if you're getting closer to that, then you can start mixing the two. But that one is tricky because there really isn't an app right now that has pre-programmed gestalts because they're so specific to the student. So you do have to do a lot of programming in order to set it up to meet your student where they're at, and then kind of introduce the mitigating phrases where you're taking like a piece of one and a piece of another and you're like sticking them together and like bringing them along in that sequence through the phases of Gestalt language processing. Jessica says, I work in an ABA clinic with toddlers with ASD that have significant behaviors, and I'm working towards SGDs with them. Do you have any example videos of evals for that population or a class you can recommend? So that population won't sit with me at a table, so it's really hard to get a video. And a lot of times they're in a classroom with other students, so it's also hard to get a video because there's like other students in the background. So I don't personally, and also a lot of times if I do an eval with that profile student, a parent isn't as willing to give permission for me to share. So I apologize, I don't have any personally, and I don't know of a class off the top of my head that I can recommend, but it is a lot more of following the student, even if they're wandering around the classroom, and you can still model as you're following them around. And like I said, I have found success with using the keyboard page to model spelling their name. That has happened to me a lot lately, where that's the first time the student actually looks at the talker is when they see the keyboard page. So I guess I would just recommend that to try if you haven't tried that yet. Hollis asks, are there certain skills clients should demonstrate before we consider going through insurance? I have seen many students who need months to learn that the device is for communication, and it could be years before they reach this level of ability. That's interesting. The part about what they have to demonstrate before you go through insurance. They kind of have to demonstrate the things that I talked about. You have to be able to say that they're using it independently. It cannot be prompt dependent, that's for sure. But like I showed you, there's strategies to help them to not be prompt dependent, which is weaning them off the prompts. So that really depends on what everyone else is doing around the student. So I guess if you're seeing that slow of a progression to learning, I would question what everyone else is doing. Is somebody prompting the student unknowingly? A lot of times people just aren't aware that they're prompting the student. And that could be holding the student back. So it's not that the student isn't ready, it's that nobody's teaching them in the right way. Tiffany says, how do we handle behaviors of perseverating on a specific page or trying to get out of the communication application to use an iPad or phone for purposes other than that communication? So there's a setting on iPads and iPhones called guided access that prevents them from getting out of the app. I talk about that. I created a how-to video of how to set it up in my Technically Speaking webinar. So if that's the issue, I would definitely recommend you look at that. Perseverating on a specific page, that's tricky. I would definitely want you to collaborate with your BCBA, your behavior specialist, because what's the function of the behavior? It always goes back to why are they doing it? And could they just be listening to a button play a recording of whatever they are doing? Like a lot of kids want to go through and press buttons in a certain sequence, like the colors from left to right. And that's kind of like a routine that they like. So could you just record a button where it's going orange, red, green, pink, black, and that would suffice. And now the student wouldn't have this need to do it on their talker. So I would go back to that strategy and try it and see if that works. Chantal says, what indicators do you look for before you teach the clear button versus changing the settings to immediately delete old phrases? That's a good question. I know you can program certain apps to auto clear. I've never done that because I want the student to learn to clear when they're hitting the button instead of it magically happening, because I feel like sometimes they might not even know why it's happening. In some apps, it happens if you hit the top bar and then you start a new sentence, it auto clears. Other ones you do like a gesture and it auto clears. So I personally just like it to be very concrete, where it's not going to clear unless I'm hitting a button that says clear. And I don't think it's like you progress from one to the other. I think it's just a personal preference. Michelle says, if you're solely modeling without expectation, how do you get them to use their talker? Yeah, so making it interesting, adding buttons that are familiar to them, that maybe they're excited to look at and excited to press, making it look really fun because you're doing it, maybe even having another child their age pushing the button. Kids will copy other kids more than they'll copy adults. That one I kind of would need more details about that particular student because every student is so different, but those are the strategies that I've found to be the most successful. Saskia says, this student profile is one I struggle with, as they tend to be persistent with trying verbal speech repeatedly without going to their AAC. Any suggestions? Okay, so they're not aware of the breakdown. Yeah, so you might need to teach them that they're even having a communication breakdown because they're just doing the same thing over and over and expecting a better result. It sounds like from what you're describing. So there needs to be some direct instruction in what a communication breakdown is so that they can then know when to switch gears and try a different mode. Michelle, oh no, that was Michelle. Oh no, that's, sorry. Michelle says, and how do you show improvement if the child never engages with the device and it's simply just used to model language? So some AAC experts kind of liken a talker to a foreign language, and you think about the timeline to learn a foreign language, it's long. And then even more extreme, some people liken it to learning your native tongue as a child. And you think about most kids aren't saying their first words till around a year. So some people have said you have to model for a year before you would give up. I know that's kind of unrealistic for a school setting, but if you keep that in mind, I think it might help make the case for people to not give up so quickly. Like, you're definitely not going to see it within a couple weeks. If you do, that's amazing. But you should be modeling for at least 6 weeks before you think about like, what's the response to this intervention? Like, modeling is an intervention. So what's the response after 6 weeks? And also make sure that you're using the strategies I talked about of modeling things that are meaningful, emotional, interesting, familiar to the student. Betsy says, I had a question about the comment on not giving directions when using the talker. Can you clarify if that's context dependent? I often use aided language simulation to model communication as I speak, pairing my verbal input with core words on the device. Yeah, I was just saying that if you're modeling sit down, give me blue, those aren't really things that are that motivating for the child to want to say to you. So you're probably not going to see as much imitation of your models if all your models are just like teacher directions, if that makes sense. But you said that you're also commenting. That's totally fine, because if you're saying like, ooh, that's yucky, and you're modeling yucky, that's probably something that your student would find interesting and they might want to say it too. Anna says, where's the line between allowing them to communicate what they desire, but also ensuring it is communicative rather than playing? When you said we're not going to play on the talker. Yeah, it's different for every student. First of all, I showed it because I wanted you to see that when I said that to Austin, we're not going to play on the talker, he got mad and he shut down. That's when he told me too much, which means go away. So I would encourage you not to say that. I messed up when I said that. Clearly, it shut down the interaction. It shut down our conversation. So I would try to kind of ignore it or play it off or say like, oopsie, and then just move on and be more lighthearted about it, so that it doesn't become punitive and they don't feel like, well, now this isn't fun anymore, so I don't want to talk to you anymore. Abby said, most of the students I work with are at the early childhood level. Can you provide any crucial differences I should be aware of, if any, in the assessment process at this age level? I mean, you're probably not going to talk about Netflix and pizza toppings. You might be talking about more age-appropriate topics. But other than that, I don't really see a difference, because you're going to be modeling single words because it's hard to model longer sentences anyway. So for younger children, you're going to be modeling very similarly. You're just going to be more younger interests, I think. Can you discuss, Diana says, can you discuss number 4, please? Okay. Hand over hand prompting never leads to prompt dependency, such as the individual grabbing an adult's finger when using the SGD or waiting for the routine prompt. So keyword never, that would be false. That hand over hand never leads to prompt dependency. I often see it leading to prompt dependency because I see kids grabbing an adult's finger because that's what's been happening to them. So they're literally imitating what the adults are doing. The adults are doing hand over hand on the talker, and now the student has learned the only time we touch this thing is when somebody's grabbing somebody else. And that's really not good. So the answer to that one is false. Eliana says, echoing Susie's question, how do you handle when students push your hands away when you're trying to model, or pull the talker away when they're trying to play with it? So if they push your hands away when you're trying to model, it depends on the student, but I have pushed back. I have leaned in a little harder and said, I just want to push one button, and then I push it and I get out. And I'm building their tolerance to letting people model. But if it's really escalating, obviously I'm not going to keep pushing. I might recommend having a second talker with the identical app and identical file and grid, and having the adult model on the second talker. I know somebody who always recommends a second talker. Like every time she recommends a talker for a student, she also recommends what she calls a modeling talker for the adults. So they have to invest in 2. I'm not that extreme, but I do, on a case-by-case basis, sometimes recommend a second modeling talker to be used short term to kind of build up the student's tolerance to modeling. And then the one about pulling the talker away when they're trying to play with it. I would look at what is the play behavior. Is it something that we can move on to a recorded button? Like what is it they're trying to do on their talker? What's the function of that behavior? And can we solve that problem first, which would then stop the pulling away? Claire asks, how did you decide on what app to show Austin at first? And did you spend time exploring any others? What decision did you make regarding the size, or was the plan for him to have access on the phone and on a larger tablet? Excellent question. First of all, the app question is really complicated. I'm not going to go into that today because I'm not advising you on one app over another. But the size was because he's older, and a lot of older individuals, it would be more functional for them to have their talker be phone size so they could keep it in their pocket, and that they can look the same as their peers. So I was just trying to model both and just see which one he kind of gravitated towards naturally. And then at the end, I did ask him which one he wanted because he could understand that. And he chose the bigger one, actually, which everyone was surprised. It was funny. In the team meeting beforehand, everyone said, oh, he's going to want a phone size. He wants it to look like a phone. But then when we actually asked him, he said he wanted the bigger one. So that's what we submitted for through insurance. So that was the idea there. Krista asked, how do you get insurance to cover if they're a toddler just learning to communicate in general, and you want a talker to model and teach vocab until they have the physical ability to do so? For those kiddos how maybe ataxic and cognitively delayed, they need the exposure. Yeah, you have to check off that their prognosis for developing speech to meet their daily functional communication needs is poor. And I know that's really hard to do with a toddler because you haven't had enough time to see the trajectory of their speech development. So I think some SLPs just check the box, and then other ones might go through a different funding source, maybe through like a grant, like a nonprofit organization that gives talkers to people when insurance is not an option, or from a lending library, because sometimes you're right, you just need to try it for a couple months and kind of see what happens. So a lending library might let you have one for a couple months before you can commit to checking that box on insurance. Paulina asks, what if they get very dysregulated because they want to exit the communication app and they can't because it's a dedicated device or has guided access? Yeah, I would have an iPad nearby. If that's like happening, if they're getting escalated because they're like clicking that home button a million times and like you can tell that that's what they're trying to do, I would model like play iPad, and then I'd bring an iPad over because they're already telling you that. They're just not telling you with words. So that's a great opportunity to model the words that go with what their body is doing, and then reward that with giving them access to an iPad, and then they can see side by side, oh, this one's an iPad for playing, and this one's a talker for talking. Catherine asks, do you continue to model without expectation for children who are non-speaking and not looking at the device at all, especially if they're often using self-stimulatory behaviors? Typically, if this student attends to an activity toy for 30 seconds 3 times within an hour is a good day. I would continue modeling without expectation. If they're not looking at the device at all, again, I would put on buttons that have, like, you know, their mom's photo is on a button in the people folder, and I'm showing that. Or, you know, a symbol from their favorite thing to watch. And the keyboard page, I'm telling you, I've discovered that the keyboard page is the key to getting some kids to look at the talker for the first time and be interested in it, because they're so interested in numbers and letters. And I would still do it if they're using self-stimulatory behaviors, because like I said, I would just move that onto a recordable button and see if they could use the button instead of the talker so that I could still model on the talker. Brenda asked, do you have recommendations for preschoolers with autism learning touch chat or other program? I'm not going to talk about specific apps, but preschoolers with autism can use lots of different apps. It isn't like one app is designed for one age with one diagnosis and another app is designed for a different age with a different diagnosis. Any of the robust apps would be appropriate for preschooler with autism. Catherine asks, what would you suggest for a child who requires an even more robust language or communication system than LAMP? Very complex communicator, but no oral speech. The only thing more robust than these robust apps like LAMP is to spell everything on a keyboard, because then you can literally say anything that you can think of. So I would recommend teaching that child how to spell. And I would recommend teaching all children how to spell. I think that's a huge missed opportunity for the children who we're talking about today. Is it starts with just spelling their name, but they should be instructed on how to put letters together to form words, because that's how we all would communicate if we lost the ability to speak, right? So that is like the ultimate goal. Catherine asks, any resources or preferred apps for dual language learners who are also trialing AAC? There are a lot of robust AAC apps that can toggle into the other language, which is amazing, and still keep the positions of the buttons in the same spot. So I would look into which apps have the other language for that particular person. A lot of them have Spanish, but then some of them have like more rare languages as well. So just find the app that has both of them. Samantha asks, for clients that are early intervention up to elementary school, what is the average time it takes that you see for independent engagement with the device? That is so dependent on what everyone is doing and the individual student. So how open is the student? How much is the student paying attention to what people are doing? And then how motivating is it? You know, what's being modeled? How interesting is what's being modeled? Is anybody prompting? So there's just so many factors that there's no way I can just give you like an average time that it takes. I apologize. Michelle asks, do you have any tips for data collection on a student with really bad behaviors who has requesting goals for more help and indicating all done? The last webinar I did, the goal getters one, I go through a bunch of different data collection tools, and I was talking about like collecting baseline data, but you can obviously use them to collect data post as well. So I would look back at those resources, like, and how you can collect data. But it sounds like you're focusing on the behaviors a little. So definitely make sure you collaborate with your behavior specialist. Denise asks, can you review what you said about having an alternate device for auditory stim? I think you were saying that we could put a choice on the talker that they could request to do that. Is that correct? Yeah, I actually didn't say that, but I like that idea. So there's a button that says like, I need my turtle button. Cause I think of that one because I had a student who used to perseverate on the turtle button on his talker, and we recorded it on a big back, but you can get them much cheaper on Amazon. So we just taught him that he pushed it, it would say turtle. It was recorded directly from his talker. But you could also have a button in the talker that's initiating the request to get the turtle button. So I like that idea. Oops, it jumped all the way down. Huh, I don't know how that happened. Hold on one second. Okay, Chantal says, how do you decide grid size? So you start with a lot with the button small, and then you simplify if necessary. So like start with complex, start with something that like you might think is too much, like go big, and then pare it back if you need to. The worst thing to do is start with like 3x3, and then you never know if the student could have done more. You're limiting them with no good reason to limit them. So I highly advocate for you to go complex, go big, and then if they're struggling, you might need to add a key guard, or you might need to hide some buttons, but like your last resort is to simplify and not have as much language, because you want to have as much vocabulary in there as possible. Jennifer Hart says, should a talker be used for a child to demonstrate what they know by teachers during academic tasks? For example, asking what color is this and expecting a response. That should come later, after you've worked out all the kinks of like, have they bought into it? Are they remembering to pick it up and bring it with them when they're walking away? Are they using it spontaneously to say things that are like way more fun than what color is this? Once the student has bought into it, they're not prompt dependent, they're not showing any kind of behavior problems, then you can certainly use it to answer academic questions. But I wouldn't make that the initial focus, because that usually leads to problems. Sonia asks, when trialing a new communication app or system, how long do you typically recommend running a trial to get a fair sense of its effectiveness for the student? When do you decide it's time to trial a different app to see if that might be a better fit? For example, TouchChat or Proloquo to go. That's a really tricky question. Again, because it depends on the student and it depends on what the adults are doing when they're trialing them. But assuming that everything's going great, there's a kind of a feature match process with choosing an app that it's not always just about the app. It's about like are there other students using the same app that like the staff has already been trained on, and you know what I mean? Like there's other factors as well, but that kind of goes down that rabbit hole of talking about which apps to choose. So I'm not gonna go there today. Yeah. Tiffany asks, would insurance cover the modeling talker? No, insurance will not cover the modeling talker. So my colleague who recommends a modeling talker every time, they would get the one for the student through insurance, and then the district would provide the modeling talker. Catherine asked, will insurance cover modeling talker? Oh, that's funny. Or do parents usually purchase that out of pocket? I always advocate for the parents to purchase absolutely nothing. They should not be spending any money personally. So like I said, I would probably do the insurance for the student and district for the modeling talker. Judith asks, even though the student is demonstrating the skills on a motivating app like YouTube, wouldn't you still want to assess formally for insurance purposes? No. If they can demonstrate the skills to be able to see a target and touch a target, there's definitely no need to formally assess. You can just check those boxes on insurance paperwork. Michelle asks, is there ever a point when the device is used to show the child's knowledge? Is it okay to ask questions, animal sounds, what animal makes that sound? So this is just like the asking what color. I would want to make sure that I didn't start with the academic questions. I would start with the conversational, funny, just using language to build relationships, you know, connection over quizzing. What animal makes that sound is a quiz, right? So just make sure you don't lead with that. Make sure you've got buy-in across all those other skills first. Diana asks, is it okay to put some phrases on the device instead of searching for words to formulate sentences in order to help them when they're escalated or quick reference? Definitely. You should have a combination of single words and phrases and full sentences. So especially for urgent, like I need to use the bathroom, they should not have to do I need to, you know what I mean? That's crazy. So yeah, use common sense and definitely pre-program in full sentences for certain messages. Amanda asks, how do you get families to buy into the device or the student to carry over use in other areas? I have many students who use at school, but then parents say they can't use it and keep the device on a shelf at home, even after multiple people emphasize how great they're using it at school. I would wonder, did you ever have like a training where like parents were there with the school team? Because I usually do that right up front. So after I have done the trials and I feel like I know what to recommend, the first thing we do is a training to go over what happened during the trials, how to redirect any kind of behaviors, how to model, how to not prompt, and that family is invited. So I've had like grandmas come, older siblings come, outside providers come to that training, and so that we all feel like we're all on the same page from day one. If you didn't do that originally and now you're trying to do it on the back end, it'll be a little trickier, but you could still invite them to come in for refresher training and go over those things together. And usually I like to involve the parents a lot because I have a slide about like personal core vocabulary. So it's the most frequently used words by the student. Like, what do they like to talk about? So it could be like their dog Chip and like Coco Melon and like pizza. And like you get all that information from their parents. So the parent feels like they're really taking the lead on the talker because they're the ones telling you what you should be modeling or what needs to be added. That usually gets a lot of buy-in from the parents. So you could just do that without even bringing them in for a training. You could just ask them to fill out a form with like all the kids' favorite things and that you're going to add them to the talker. And that usually creates a lot of buy-in. Callie asked, how do you model for students who keep running away from you? I've definitely had kids run away from me. Yeah, that's hard. You got to have something that they are interested in. Like, I know without withholding, that's the key. Or just joining them in whatever they're doing. And it might not be talking. You might have to like silently play with them in their way if they're just like in a sensory bin, living their best life, watching the feathers fall down in front of their eyes. I've done that with a kid just to like get into his head, and like he started like leaning on me, and then I knew, okay, that was a good sign. And then I started modeling and he actually looked at what I was modeling. So it's really about like observing first instead of like being so demanding. Because a lot of kids I work with, just interacting with them, they take it as a demand and they're avoiding. And that's what the running away is. It's an escape from a demand because any interaction with an adult is seen as a demand. So I think you have to kind of earn their trust by you literally just like hanging out with them and not putting a demand on them, and see if that is your in. All right, I think that was the last question. And we went 13 minutes over. So I think that's okay, right, Blair?
Yes, that was perfect timing, and you got through all the questions. And like Anne said at the beginning, if anyone has additional questions, feel free to email Anne and continue collaborating that way. But thank you so much, Anne, for sharing all of your knowledge with us today. Just a reminder that if you would like to earn ASHA CEUs or if you need a certificate, please complete the assessment. The link is in the chat, and you will also receive an email tomorrow with a link to the assessment as well. The assessment must be completed at 80% or better, and it will remain open for 1 week. So thank you again to everyone for attending. And thank you, Anne, again, for sharing your knowledge with us. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.